Yeah, yeah, yeah. Baby, yeah. You don't say ready on this. You know I have patience.
Greetings, family. Greetings. This is Kyle Dixon here with my co-host Kaide Bentley for another Grand Rising Collective episode for our podcast. So, for those of you all who have been rocking with us, we appreciate you. Please subscribe to our Grand Rising Collective Facebook page, where we will have a lot of our videos posted along with other tidbits of information to help benefit you, give you some insight on some things. Also, please like, share, and subscribe our YouTube videos on our YouTube page, also titled Grand Rising Collective. So again, we really thank you all for joining us today. And we have a special guest today here by the name of Anthony Hudson. But before we get into our host, just to give you a brief introduction of who I am. So I'm Kyle Dixon, educator, entrepreneur, one half of Grand Rising Collective. And Grand Rising Collective is a name that we came up with in reference of being at your best, being excellent at all times. Grand Rising is a term of endearment for like the morning, like when people say good morning, they may say Grand Rising. So it's a constant reminder for us to not only start the day at a high level and rise to the occasion, but be grand in what you do, grand in what you think, grand in who you are. And it's just a constant mantra for us and reminder for us and our guests who are on here for our podcast episodes. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to my co-host, Kyle David.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you as always. Kyle did a great introduction on the Grand Rising Collective. There's nothing really more I can add to that. He covered it precisely. What I can add is information about myself, so you know who you're talking to, who's talking to you, and who you're listening to, and who's speaking. My name is Kaide Bentley. I'm the president and founder of an organization called Teaching Teens to Think, whose mission is to help teens, specifically in the demographic age group of 16 to 24, identify their inherent skill set, meaning what they do naturally, so that way they can leverage that to complete their education, including higher education, get a job, establish a career, and ultimately start a business if they choose to. My demographic, as I said before, is in the age of 16 to 24. My reasons for being a part of the Grand Rising Collective is to uplift the community. Whereas those in the community exist with not only young people within that age range, but also parents, community leaders, community business people. So that way we can, disseminate this information, put it out the bubble, so we can uplift the community at large to benefit all of us who's there starting there. So this is my way of contributing to the community based on the experience that I've had and learned. Not only am I president of an organization for Teaching Teens to Think, I'm also a professor at Fordham University, and I also sit on the advisory board at Long Island University. So these are the different hats that I wear, the experience that I contain, that I bring to the collective and sharing my experience, again, for the ultimate purpose of uplifting the community, hence the name Grand Rising Collective. Without any further ado, I just had the opportunity of meeting this young man. His name is Anthony. Tony, he come by. Wait till you'll find out where he at. We're going to get this up. Let me calm down. Tony, please introduce yourself, my brother, and let the other people know who you are, what you're about, whatever you want to share. We can get in this conversation.
Okay. My name is, hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Hudson. Everybody, friends, family, everybody knows me as Tony. I am currently, I live in Japan, but originally from Phoenix, Arizona. So it's a little bit far from home, but I'm loving it. Just a student of life. And right now, currently I have two businesses that I'm on. There's three businesses that I'm working in. The first industry is in education, kind of changing education and furthering that, and just kind of redeveloping education. But I guess my background is in finance and mathematical finance. So I also have a company called the Leo Mays Group, which is a global trading company. We trade all different types of stocks and gold, natural gas, and oil. And so that's my trade. My background is actually in trading, but I think that education is really important. And actually, I look at them as very similar industries, surprisingly, because in the one area you have finance or money that's just everywhere. It's always moving around, which is no different than education or information, which is always moving around. And traders try to connect those two things. And that's no different than an educator and connecting people or the need for information with that outlet. So I think they're very similar. That's why I'm pursuing both things currently. So that's kind of how I got to Japan. But I guess we can get into that if you have a question about that. So that's my background is both finance and now I'm venturing into education.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. All right. Wow, man. All the way in Japan. All right. The land of the rising sun. And just real quick before we start, Tony, just to give us and our viewers a sense of time and space, right? What time is it over there right now?
It is 10:17 a.m. Saturday morning.
10:17 Saturday morning, meaning the next day morning.
Yeah, May 22nd.
Ooh. So you see, family, you know, the things that we have to do in order to coordinate, you know, Kaede and I, you know, to have a guest like this brother on here, right? So he's into the next day, so he's time traveling right now. He's going back in time. We're going forward in time. He's coming back in time. All right.
Crazy.
Yes. So Tony, just to start off the questions. Again, you mentioned Japan. You're in Japan. Like, where are you in Tokyo? Like, where are you at in vicinity of, I guess, Tokyo? Because people know Tokyo, I guess.
Okay. So I live in a city called Nagoya. It's the third largest city in Japan. It's halfway between.
And you said it's Yagoya because it's a little noise in the back. I'm sorry.
Nagoya.
Nagoya.
It's the third largest city in Japan. It's halfway between Tokyo, the first largest city, and Osaka, the second largest city, which is kind of in the middle. And I guess the most famous thing from Nagoya is it's the home of Toyota. So
Toyota.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. And what would you say, like, as far as like the differences, some of the immediate differences of like living, especially as a brother, you know, as a black guy, as a black man living in Japan? I hear, you know, you don't see a lot of black people there. Like, how do they view you? And then what are some of the differences in reference to America to Japan? Like, just immediate differences.
Well, I guess from where I grew up, so I grew up in Phoenix, which is not known for its black population.
Right.
You know, like, I mean, there's not a lot of us. Now there's more after I left, I guess. But when I was growing up, there just wasn't a lot. So I guess moving to here, it was just kind of regular. It's just being in another foreign place where there's not a lot of people that look like you. But I guess a lot of other people say they have a lot more difficult of a time moving over here. So for me, the transition was easy. So I've always been overseas and kind of moved around, and like as far as traveling. I've lived in Mexico before, and I've lived in Singapore before. So this is just kind of the next step. I guess as far as treatment, everybody, I mean, it's been wonderful. It's been, from my decision to come over here, so I came over here 5 years ago. And the reason that I chose to come over here was because after I graduated from graduate school, and I had studied at an international school for Thunderbird, and I got my master's degree. And I wanted to venture out and go overseas, and specifically I wanted to go towards Asia because I kind of thought that this is going to be the future. That's where a lot of the business was heading. So I wanted to go to I didn't really know what part of Asia or how, the details I wasn't specific on. And so what kind of happened was when I went to Singapore, which is which is one of the English-speaking countries in Asia, and I went to go get a job, and I had some connects from school. And whenever they got me some interviews. I had a couple interviews at some big Wall Street investment banks that have Asian divisions and stuff like that. And I was at a British bank, and specifically the guy said, "I really like you, but I have a question. Do you speak Chinese?" And when he asked me that, I was like, "No, I can speak Spanish, but I can't speak Chinese." And I was like, "I thought this is like." I mean, this is an English country. It used to be a British colony. Like it's Hong Kong or something. Why do you need Chinese? And he said, we are on the face. This is British, or this is an English-speaking country, but really this is a Chinese-owned country. All of our business goes through China, and all of our money comes from China. So all of the clients you're going to interact with speak Chinese, and even though they can speak English, they prefer to speak in Chinese. So if you can speak Chinese to them, it would really benefit us. So that was one of the reasons I didn't get the job. And at that time, I was kind of running out of money because I had some money saved up and everything. And after a couple of interviews, one after another said the same thing, just Chinese, Chinese, Chinese. And I was like, so then I said, well, okay, I'm going to have to learn Chinese. And I started to dig into it, and it got really difficult really fast. So I said, okay, well, I can go back to America and start studying before I can come back out here and get a job and kind of expand. But I wanted to make sure that was the direction I wanted to go in. And so I did an assessment of the future, and I believe, macroeconomically speaking, I think that Japan's future is actually brighter than China's. And this was about 7 years ago.
Okay.
And so I said, well, I should, either way, I'm going to have to learn Chinese or I'm going to have to learn Japanese. So I just need to start studying one of the two languages. And so that's when I started to study Japanese. And then I moved, and then I tried to find a person over the internet that could help me speak. And that was actually how I ended up meeting my wife. But from Phoenix, I was interacting with her. We were doing regular lessons, and then she was like, "You should come over here and teach. And that way, you can get over here. You can practice learning Japanese, but at the same time, you can teach other people English." And I had never heard about that. And actually, one of the things that's kind of interesting is it's a really popular job for white Caucasian people that they want to go overseas. One of the first things that they do is try to figure out if that other country doesn't speak English, well, I can teach English to you. That's something that the Black community doesn't really know a lot about. A lot of African Americans, we don't know how am I going to go over to this country? What can I do there? What's my job? But I mean, it's a really popular job as long as you have a bachelor's degree in anything, I don't care what it is, but as long as you can speak English or native speaker, you can get a job. So when I first came over here, that was what I did the first year. There was other teachers at my company that were from Jamaica, they were from Nigeria, they were from all over the Philippines. There were many other English-speaking countries around the world. And I said, why didn't like African Americans didn't know about this, so I thought that was really cool. But as I started to learn more about the culture at the same time as I was teaching, an opportunity here. And I said, I can open up a business that just teaches education, but educates them in a better way. So that was actually how I started my school with my wife. So that's how I got into it, because I ended up enjoying it. But I ended up coming over here because of the future of Japan.
Man, that's a thorough story.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Man, I had a question, but after you did that, now it threw me all off. Wow. Okay. So you said it's mandatory that you have a bachelor's degree. In
Yeah.
order for you have to have a bachelor's degree. It's
You have to have a bachelor's degree and at least something so that they know that you can kind of do English at what they would consider a high enough a professional level. And so that's the metric that they
wow. Okay. Because I was thinking, I run my own company. You know what I mean? So, nah. I'm gonna lighten it up. I see your. Listen. We're gonna switch vibes, okay? We're gonna get to deep guy. That's gonna be like. So on a light note, before I get into the deep questions, if I have any,
Yeah.
Man, that's a nice haircut, brother.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
When I first came out here, I couldn't find anybody.
That's what I was gonna
try to cut in myself. The first couple of times it was rough, but I'm glad. I appreciate you saying that. It makes sense.
Little things.
So you found the barber out there that could cut hair. Wow.
Okay. I got the straight edge and everything. So yeah.
Wow. When time get rough.
Oh man. Okay, so that handles that. Oh man, I noticed. I'm sorry, Kyle. I'm just trying to all over the place with this, and I don't want to jump ahead of the questions that we have. Have you? I was watching a video, and I gave it to. I sent it to Kyle to view. But it's more related to the. It's tied into COVID, but it's also related to the break in the struggle among Asians and blacks, because I don't know if you heard of this, and Kyle, you can chime in. In China, they're treating blacks. They're kicking them out of hotels. They have to live on streets. They're blaming blacks for the COVID. You didn't know? Apparently, he didn't know about that.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So now there's a big division between Africa and China, where China went to do developing and stuff like that. But because of this divide, now it's like we're putting the brake on all future projects and stuff like that. So I just wanted to know, geographically, I know Japan is not in China, right?
Yeah, no, they hate each other.
I guess that answers that right there to a large extent. How is and I heard what you said, like it's great where you're at, right? They're welcoming and stuff like that. Have you noticed any conflicts and challenges since the COVID came out? Because I saw a patron behind you. He had the mask on. So I saw that. Has there been any type of,
No, and that's another interesting thing. I think I'm really, I guess, from African Americans specifically, going overseas, like we should have been going. That's a whole other thing. Like we need to go, and the reason why I say that is because when you go overseas, you're not black. You're just an American, because they don't know what African American means. So you're just an American. Like me and Lance or somebody else, they look at us, from my perspective, or all the other people that I've talked to, they look at us the same. I guess, of course, you're going to get discrimination here, but for most of the people I've talked to, people of color, they all say the discrimination is more because you're foreign. It's not because of your skin color.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that's interesting, because they don't know what you are. Like they don't have a lot of those negative stereotypes. And so that's what's really interesting. I haven't had that type of experience. Now I know in China, I know they're a little bit more discriminatory there. And one of the things that's interesting is there's a really big city. There's like a city by Guangzhou called Chocolate City, and Guangzhou is over by where Wuhan is on the map. So that's kind of, if they blame them for that, I can definitely see that, because of course when
Wow.
a person of color, you're going to get blamed for most of the things that have nothing
Right.
to do with you. But I mean, so that I can see that happening. But that's actually that place, Chocolate City, is the largest black or the largest African outpost outside of Africa in Asia. So it has the most African of any other place.
I didn't even know.
Hmm.
Thank you, Tony. That's very good, man.
Wow. So yeah, Tony. So wow. So it's more discrimination based on more so you just being a foreigner and American, more so than you being like an African American or black person. Like, oh, like because you're black, like you may be trying to do us harm, or you may be bringing some illegitimate disease over. Right, but it's more so like you're foreign. You represent America in a sense, like you represent this country. You know what I'm saying?
Because the Japanese have a very us versus you mentality. So it's like kind of us versus the world. And so I'm just the world. And they're like it would be something to the point of like they maybe say like, of course you don't understand. You're a foreigner. Understand. But they would say that would be a comment that somebody would understand. Like they would definitely say that. So that happens often. What's funny is
So
my wife.
What? so a heavy sense of nationalism. So like a heavy sense of nationalism, right?
It's amazingly heavy. I think the Japanese culture is probably the tightest knit culture next to Jewish culture. Like, it's that tight. Once you're in it, you're born in it. You're born into this, and that's who you are. Like, you can't go. You're just there. And, that's another thing that's really great, I guess, for me, because especially coming from the Black community, and I think that the one thing that we struggle with is a sense of like connection, kind of tight. We always want to divide ourselves, and they don't divide themselves at all. If you ask a Japanese person where they're from, the first place they're going to say is Japan. They won't say that they're from Tokyo. They won't say they're from Hokkaido or some other place, Okinawa. They're just going to say, I am Japanese. Like it's a unit. And we won't, like, that's one thing. We would never just say, I am Black. Like, that's my ethnicity. That's my whatever.
Wow. Question. How was the I told him I'm going all over the place. I told him, how was the wedding? Was when you married your wife, you had to get to know and everything. Did you marry her according to Japanese custom? Or did you marry the general, like what was that experience like for you?
Oh, we had a wedding at a church, and one of the things that's really interesting, a lot of Japanese women want to get married in a church. They just think it looks beautiful, and they just like it. So she did the whole thing. She put on the wedding dress. I think it's because they see these things in movies. They see like Cinderella and the whole experience. They just want to experience it. But they don't even believe. And what's funny is because they don't even believe like half of that stuff. So like they're standing in front of the priest, and they're just like, yeah, sure, I do, whatever. Swear to God, and they're like, I don't even believe in it, but that's fine. I just want to go through the whole.
So let me clarify this, Tony. Because I know people be like, oh, that's blasphemous. You know what I'm saying? Like, but could you really break it down? Like, because I know what you're saying is not that they don't believe in a higher power per se, but they just maybe not believe that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, or they may. Like, please break that down for like viewers.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah, no, the official religion is Buddhism, which is the strongest. I guess the strongest percentage of religious people. But just my observation, and this is just me, I have no statistics to back this up, but I believe that the people are about as Buddhist as America is Christian. So you have a lot of people in America that are like, there is no God, blah, 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 you die, you go to the ground. Here in Japan, it's the same thing. People who are not religious, even though their great-grandmother or their grandmother, even their parents might or probably are religious. But the younger generations are starting to become less and less religious even here.
Mm,
So that maybe that's a worldwide trend.
mm,
Very good.
wow. Wow. So, and Kite, unless you had a question,
All right, go, Cal. We
in
going.
reference, Tony. So, in reference to the culture, right? We talk about the culture. Like I said, you were married, the ceremony. So, in reference to the culture, as far as just certain things, like on a day to day. Like I know you mentioned education. So, like on the everybody's going through the COVID thing, which we wouldn't get into. But what about on a day to day education? What is the schedule of a child pre-COVID? You know what I'm saying? Like, how would they do they go the same way? Is the same structure as far as lunch and things like that? Could you talk about that?
Well, they've changed a lot because, of course, when it was really strong over here, then they were doing a lot of the Zoom classes. Now they've moved back into the classroom. So since they moved into the classroom, they're doing, it's not like A through J because they don't use the alphabet, but it's basically like A through J comes in the morning, and then K through Z come in the afternoon. So if your last name it's not, they don't have alphabet. If it was K, then you're going to take the same classes just in the afternoon, and you're going to go to your C. But because A through J is not here, every student has to skip a C. So the teachers are doing their same lessons 2 times.
Got you. 6 feet. The
Okay.
6 feet space rule, right? The 6 feet apart.
Right.
Wow.
So they need half as many students in the class. So
Right.
that's why they have to have 2 classes. But what they're going to do is they're going to make up those other classes on the end on summer vacation.
Oh, so that means students are going to have to go to school in the summer?
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
These students are always in school.
Yeah.
Even on the regular school day, so the regular school day goes like from 8:15 to 8:15 to I guess 3 p.m.
12 p.m.
And then after that, so 8:15 to 3 p.m. is the normal school.
Three.
8 to 3. And then after that, they'll either go home, or they'll go to their club activity or whatnot. And then after that, they'll go to a night school. In Japan, it's called juku.
Juku?
Yeah, juku. Juku just means, it's Japanese for cram school or night school. Most Asian countries have these. I definitely know. I know Vietnam, China, Taiwan, Korea, all of them have these. And these jukus, they'll go from, usually hour starts from 3:30, 4 p.m. From 4 p.m. and it goes till 7:30. And so ours, they'll do another 4 hours of school after that. Some other jukus, I know in Korea, some of the jukus actually go till 11 at night. And they had to make a law that says that you can't have the jukus go past 11 p.m.
I would think, good. Jesus Christ. You kidding me?
But I mean, they're trying to prepare their youth for the working environment. So it just lets people know what we're up against.
Wow, that's a long time. Wow. I mean, like, okay, so I'm guessing, Tony, that they would have those jukus, especially the ones in Korea that were going for that long period of time to like 11:30. Is it for competition? Because I know the stereotype, the negative stereotype is the fact that students, especially of like Asian descent, are like very good at math, right? So it's like, oh, Asians today, they're all good at math. Like, is that true? Does it have some truth to it?
Usually, a lot of the students are really good at math, but I think one of the things that's interesting is the reason why we believe a lot in America. I feel in America we believe a lot in natural ability, that we were born naturally different than somebody else. And
right.
For the most part, I don't really subscribe to that so much anymore because I realize that most people are built 99% the same. And the difference is just the amount of effort they put into it. If you went out and played baseball every single day of your life, you're just naturally going to be better at baseball than I am. Like it's just going to come in. Now, there, of course, you can say there's a certain amount of natural ability in there. Okay, yeah, that's true too. But at a certain point, the vast majority of the difference, especially when you start getting into what separates a B student from an A student, is maybe it's like 5%, 2%, 2% more study. You know, the extra hour, the extra 2 hours. Like here, they're going to school in Juku for an extra 4 hours out of the day, 4 out of 24 hours. You know, it's an extra 1/6 of the day. So that little extra 18% is what's putting them in the highest universities in America, because they're just studying that 10-15% extra. That's the only difference between them and somebody else. And where does that 15% come from? We would like to say it comes from our natural ability. You can't be us, but really it's more often than not, it's just the 15% that's come from I'm putting in more hours. So the reason why a lot of them are better at math is just because their education here is math intensive. All they do is bang, 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 math. And it's no different than English. We study English every single day in America, either at school, when we're listening to music, when we're out with our friends. We're just practicing so much. And that's how we get so good at English, just because we're practicing. So nobody's like, wow, it's amazing you can speak English. Yeah, of course, you live in America, you spend enough hours around it, you're going to do it. And that's the same thing. Like they just make their students spend so many hours. That's why.
That's very good. It's funny you brought that up, because years ago, when I started my organization, teaching teens to think, part of it was like I was engaged to a young lady from Korea, South Korea, and she had a child. We broke up, by the way. We're not together. But part of that experience was giving her child a custom that they had, which was you would place certain things. When we talk about natural ability, they had a custom, right, where it was a girl and she placed a shoe. She was sitting on a blanket, you know, everybody was around, and she put 4 items in front of her. One was a shoe, one was a book, one was a dollar bill, and another one was jewelry or something like that. So and sat the child down and said, okay, you know, which one do you like, or gave a gesture to go, and whichever thing she gravitated to was an indication of what she naturally connected with, so to speak, and build their education, that child's education around that. So they would put her, you know, that was the custom. So in China, they did sort of the same thing. So whatever your child gravitated to, that's what you would build your education around. So whatever school you take it to, if the child gravitated to money, it would be a school dedicated in numbers and math and, you know, things of that nature. If it was shoes, it would be a school dedicated to fashion and stuff. How is that different, if any, to Japan's custom and their educational system?
I mean, that just like what you said is it's very similar in Japan. The same thing. A lot at the beginning, everybody. I guess education kind of looks like a tree trunk. At the beginning, everybody gets the same education, and then as they get to high school, it starts to split off. Even in junior high school, some junior high schools start to specialize too, and they start to do the same thing. They start to specialize depending on if you're doing sports or if you're doing programming, or if you're doing music. So that's really similar. And that kind of reminds me of like, I'm a Kobe Bryant fan. He's my favorite player, even though I hate the team. Coming from Phoenix, I hate the team.
Yeah, he gave y'all buckets. Kobe, rest in peace, gave y'all buckets.
But at the same time, he's my favorite player because, and the one thing about him was, the reason I loved him is because of his drive, but the reason why he was so great was just the number of hours he put in. It wasn't, I mean, his body frame, he wasn't like Shaq. Shaq is just naturally big, like he just can't be that big. But if you look at Kobe's just, I mean, he just puts in the number of hours in the gym. He's almost like mathematical in the number of hours he puts in equal to success. And I think that's the same. I really think that that's the same. And we could be just as great if we put in the same number of hours towards whatever we want to do. So going back to what you were saying, if your son or daughter wants to do whatever, if she wants to be a ballerina, if she wants to be whatever, just spending those number of hours doing that, they're going to get to a professional level.
Very good.
Indeed. Indeed. And that's funny that you mentioned that, Tony. Yeah, because Kobe talks about that on a few of his interviews. And when you mentioned about the spending the time with the math there, the math curriculum there, it made me think of Kobe, how he said he would put in extra hours at the gym. And he said maybe the first few years, it doesn't really make much of a difference. But when you get into that 5th, 7th, and 10th year, that's when you start to see the gap widen between those who put in enough hours in reference to a certain skill, in his case, basketball, whereas in the case with the Japanese children, math, than other children in other countries, namely America, where we focus, like I said, very English-based, but it's really more so about really about relaxing. You know, America's all about, like, you know, working hard, but it's like, okay, well, if we're not working hard, then we're relaxing, we're hanging out or whatnot. You know, it's like, and then when we're definitely not in school, we're definitely not in school. It's like, oh, like summer break, like I'm not thinking about school. I am on break. Like I have no qualms about any textbook or anything like that. If you put it in front of me, I might throw it back at you. You know, so it's like that mentality, right? It's like, seriously, right? You're from Phoenix, we're from America. So, and that kind of goes into my next question. As far as school, I know you had briefly told me something about something you're thinking about. You don't have to go into the depths of it because I know you're still developing it, but you were talking about how, you know, your experience of going into college and in graduate school and then having like huge school debt, and then also in reference of the pedagogy just with education in America in general, because now you've been away from America for 5 years, so you have a kind of like a inside out perspective, you know what I mean? So could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I guess all of these ideas kind of build on each other, and like the talking about like you were saying, if I guess most charts are exponential in that, like they kind of, that's that little bit of percent. As you start to move over further and further, you just go up a little bit better, a little bit better. At the beginning, you can see huge changes, but then when you start to get later and later, you're spending hours and hours and hours just for this little small percentage increase. And that's what that small percentage increase is what's the difference in everything. And so using that, like, I believe that most things, the change is really, really small, actually. But that small change is the difference between night and day. Just that extra 2 points per game is the difference between being the MVP and not getting anything or whatnot. So, like in education, I feel that the schools that are changing their education, they only have to change education a little bit. There's a couple things that they're missing, but that little bit is going to translate into a little bit higher of a grade point average, or students being a little bit better over time. And that's going to be the difference between being professional and non-professional. So that was kind of, I guess, how I started to build my school, is that right now our students kind of all get the same education, and I believe that most schools in America are failing. And the reason why they're failing is because they have a factory mindset, is that we can generate classroom by classroom, and then they're going to start to we're producing classes. I mean, you look at like ASU, where I'm from, the largest university in the country, is graduating 100,000 students at a time. Or whatever it is. I mean, there's 100,000 students that go there, but I think they're graduating. There's like 20,000 students, 100,000 students at a time. And you're like, how did you educate? How did you give the right education to each one of those students? I mean, everybody's coming from different backgrounds. They come from different intellectual levels. They have different experiences, and they're going to different jobs. So how did you give everybody what they needed? And so I think what's happening is not the fact that we are graduating with way too much student load, which we are, but the fact that once they're getting out, they realized that they didn't learn what they needed in our universities or even in our schools, and our schools have failed them to do anything else. So I know that you were talking before about starting your own business, and personally, I believe that everybody should be, especially every person of color should be able to start their own business. By the time they graduate from school, they should be able to start a business in something, anything like a coffee shop, anything, delivering newspapers. Okay, cool, start a business, whatever it is. Just delivering boxes. You can build Amazon, right? Just delivering boxes. So it doesn't matter it doesn't matter the idea or the complexity of the idea. It's just executing that. But we don't know. We can't start our own businesses because our schools are not preparing us for that. Our schools are preparing us to go get a job and work for somebody else. So what happens is after we graduate, our community has to go work for somebody else because they literally can't do anything else. They would love to start a business. If you talk to somebody, would you like to start a business? I would love to. I don't know how. So they're sitting there waiting for a big company like Amazon. Like I know, like in the New York area, everybody was really excited when Amazon was coming because they're going to bring some jobs. I'm like, why are you waiting for the job? Create your job. There's more jobs around the world than there are people. So it's just figuring out what can you do and what can you get somebody to pay you to do.
Whew.
Jules, Jules.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Which I talked to Kyle a lot about this, but I really believe, especially in the Black community, and it's just because I'm Black, so but this applies to the community. I believe that community has a responsibility to look after their own, right? No different than like baboons or chimpanzees would look after their group, the young ones and everybody else. And our Black community has a responsibility to look after our Black youth. And part of that is giving them a job and giving them something to do. If you see a young brother on the corner doing, just hanging out, it's because he doesn't have anything to do. And the community is not telling him, you need to work. We need you doing something. We need you doing this. We need you doing that. Like, you need to be moving. Our community just tells him, hey, it's cool to chill. Just relax. Like you were saying, summer vacation, your job is done. And you have to tell them your job is never done. We have things that need to be built. But we don't identify the Black community as separate from the American community. And I'm not saying that it's better or worse or whatnot. I'm just saying that we are different. We are a subset of America. And as soon as we recognize that we're a subset of America, then we can start to give our people what they need. Like no different than in New York. If you follow the New York government, local government, and then you also follow the federal government, what the U.S. government says, and you watch both of them, and that's the same thing. But we don't say that African Americans are like a separate group. And as soon as we did that and said, okay, we're separate, then people would start to say, well, okay, well, you're separate. Well, how are you different? What do you do? What do you need? How does Black education different than regular education? Or how is once we start to address those things, then we can start to get Blacks where they need it. But the reason why they're struggling right now is because we are a different set, but we're trying to eat what everybody else eats.
Very good. Very good. I have a point to make. Not necessarily a question, but a point, because Cal was a guest of ours at a partnership that I have with my organization with the Boys and Girls Club. And one of the things that I always knew it, but it was verified and confirmed over the past 2 weeks. Whereas I manage a room of teams that come in virtual Zoom. And I was given teams who recently graduated to serve as co-hosts and help me. So the job was for them to just help me, right? They just be in the room, and I facilitate the program. So that I'm grateful to God to know that what I did was I flipped it. Like there's the chat in the room you have to monitor. There's the waiting room, or the breakout rooms. There's the actual programs in and of itself, and then there's the just floater supporter. So what I did was I have 3 of the teams who were assigned to my room. I delegated them to cover an area in that Zoom, and they gravitated to the responsibility like it was the greatest thing in the world. Did you not? To your point, where we have young brothers and sisters, but particularly young brothers on the corner, not given anything to do, not giving any responsibility, not delegated any type of structure in which to apply whatever interest that they have. And very good point. I think that's the statement that I wanted to make. Right on point regarding that, giving these young people something to do. And final point, with regards to education, they're not equipping the students after college to start their own business. They're just basically, school is a place where you memorize stuff, but you don't comprehend it. You don't understand it. You're just memorizing it for the sake of memorization. So that when they get out of school, they don't know what to do. They're loaded with debt, and they don't know what to do, or the only program that they have is to work for somebody else that lines up with what they've been programmed to remember, which half the time they don't even remember because they cheat their way through the courses to anywhere in the United States, right? So that's just the statement I wanted to make, Tony, to your point, which is very valid. Very good, brother. Thank you for the information, man.
And when you said you were doing that, what you did is you did 2 things. The first thing is you gave those people a responsibility or a job, something to do, and they had something that they could take ownership of, and they had something that kept them not busy, but it gave them a job, and that job is that's how we feel important. We get our value by what we do in life, and you gave them something to do. Now, the second thing that you did was you also created an option in the marketplace. And this is starting to get into stocks, for example. Like if you wanted to buy a stock, you could say, which stock do you want to buy? And how you choose the stock will depend on a lot of other factors, but you have a choice. If you go to other stock, if you go to, for example, the Jamaican stock market, or if you go to other stock markets, they only have a choice of about 30 stocks that you can pick. So if that stock isn't right for you, then there's just nothing you can invest in. But if you look in the U.S. stock market, there's over 4,000 stocks. So one of those are going to be at your right risk level. One of those are going to be at what you're earning, your requirements or something like that. So there's something that suits you. And that's the same thing about when you gave him a job. In the black marketplace, we don't have jobs for our youth. And so because our middle income or higher income African Americans don't give jobs to younger people, then they have to go into the white marketplace to sell their services. Because when you go to work, you sell time for money, right? But where you're selling it is your job. And if black middle class and upper class people are not giving those opportunities to our young people, they have to go to the white marketplace to sell their services. And when you go into the white marketplace, they're not going to give you the same exchange rate as they are in your own community. And so you can't expect, and the reason why a lot of black people feel like when I go to work and Becky goes to work and they don't pay us the same. And you can't expect them to pay you the same because you're in their marketplace. When I come to Japan, I don't get the same treatment as a Japanese person because I'm in Japan and I'm a foreigner. And that's the same thing. Those black people should have the option. Those young black brothers should have the option of working for it. If you don't believe that you're getting paid what you're worth, you should go work at a black company. Well, the problem is there is no black company. But if there was, then I could go work for him and he will pay me what I'm worth. And if he doesn't pay me what I'm worth, then maybe I wasn't really worth that. But right now they don't have the option. You created the option for those people. And that's the problem. We don't have those options.
Wow. One final point to that, Cal. We should step it up. We should step it up even higher. Whereas if we go to a white company, they don't pay us our worth, and we go to a black company, and there's no black company to go to, right? Because then we should start our own company.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
And we need a lot of middle, and I believe that I say anybody who's rich has more money, covers their needs, their basic necessities. I don't have to worry about where I'm gonna get food. I don't have to worry about these things. I have a roof, I have a house and stuff like that. So after that point, I'm cool. I'm cool. My family's cool. At that point, I'm rich, and so then I'm going to just start to invest into the future. I'm just going to start to accumulate assets anyway. But those assets should be in the black marketplace. If I buy a house and if I'm buying an investment property, I should buy a black investment property in a black neighborhood. So then when somebody else is coming up, then they're going to have a black landlord who's going to understand their struggle. They're not just going to kick them out when COVID gets bad and, okay, you didn't pay the rent. I knew you weren't, so I'm going to kick you out. We have those, but the people we're steady trying to move out of our neighborhoods. And as soon as we get a little bit of money, oh shoot, I'm going to the nice part of town. I'm out of here. But they shouldn't. They should say, this is who I am. No different than the Japanese people. This is who I am. I have some money that's invested into the neighborhood. When I see like you were saying, when I see those brothers sitting on the corner, they're looking. I'm like, you guys need something to do. If it's like, teach some kids, teach some young people, teach them do something, teach them to play basketball, teach them, just hang out with them, just be a father figure to them. Just sit here, babysit this kid, just let him hang out with you. Chances are, if that kid is sitting there, you're probably going to make better choices, and that's something better in the community. But we don't look at our community as something that's distinct from the rest of the community. We're just in our area.
Very good. Very good.
Wow, man, you dropped some jewels, man. Oh, it just makes me think of that concept. A brother online was talking about. I just can't remember his name right now, but he was referring to, like we were saying, Tony. A lot of our black companies, we build horizontally, basically laterally, but we don't go vertical. And by basically what you were just saying, if that company does exist, we kind of stay at this kind of base level, but we don't build upon that. So that way we can't hire anybody. We can't hire those people who have the skills in our community or in our families to be able to use those skills and build on those skills as they're building up the company and the equity of the company at the same time. So, man, you speaking gems, man. Gems.
And I think a lot of the things that we look at as discrimination are, I don't know if they're discrimination or not. For example, if I'm black, then I feel more comfortable around black people than I do around other people, because that's who I am. That's who I grew up with, and my friends and family, everything like that. So if I'm going to start a business, these are going to be a business I'm probably just going to work around, and people I'm going to have to be around for many hours of the day, right? If I have to spend 12 hours around this person, I'm going to not only want them to be intellectually at a certain level, but at the same time, I want somebody that I can work with and bounce ideas off of. Who's going to be that best person for me? Well, naturally, because I'm black, it's just going to be another black person. But if I was white, it would probably be another white person. And so we try to, so what happens is when these white people are starting businesses and they're not hiring as many black people, and we're like, wait, I'm just as qualified as him, but he didn't pick me. And I'm like, well, of course he didn't pick you, because he just feels more comfortable around that other person. The problem goes back to, we should be joining together. We're like, hey, we need to start our stuff. We need to do our things.
Very good. Very good. I never thought of it that way. I never looked at it from that perspective to a large extent. You know what I mean? Because I always thought about the interview process, and I gave this example to the students that I teach. Whereas, that cliche that says you have to work twice as hard, than the white man to get up there. I mean, in and of itself, on the surface, you can, base it down to, subconscious or unconscious bias, right? But then the way you put it, Tony, and it's now, if I ran my own company, I'm going to want to hire somebody who I'm going to have to be around a lot, someone who understands, who has the same perspective of life that I have, someone who's been treated the same way that I've been treated, because in conversation, that's how you build that bond. So it's only natural that if you're a white person, you own a company, and you have two candidates or applicants that come in, with the same qualifications. The only difference is their complexion, that subconsciously and just in a connection way, you're going to connect more with that white applicant if you're white, because they have the same experiences that you've had growing up in business. It just makes logical sense. And as you build, I never looked at it that way before. That's very good. Thank you, Tom.
Like you were saying with your company, and I don't know about your company, but you were saying like the education. I'm guessing that maybe your focus on the education is more towards inner city or more towards people that might be from a similar background or something like that. And are you discriminating? No, but that's the area you saw that there's a need for. And the reason you need is because you're from that area. So you're creating a solution for your need. It's just that we don't look at us as separate. We just say, well, I can work when you go to work, you're building something. And when you're building something, people see what you're building. And when I go overseas and I come over here, everybody wants to go to America. The reason why they want to go to America is because of what America has built. When you go to New York, what's great about New York is what it's built. Like before, it was just like a block. It was just a swamp, right? There was nothing.
Right, islands.
The great thing about it is what the people have the work that the people have put in to build the shops, to build the culture, to build the buildings, to build the museums, and all of that stuff is the work that we've put in. And so what happens is we have blacks that are graduated from HBCUs and that are graduated from. We have an amazing amount of working capacity, and that working capacity we're putting into the community, and we're putting it into America. And you can see these structures being built, but they're not benefiting us per se. So we're actually building somebody else's kingdom.
You hearing this, family? You hearing this?
Can you say that one more time, Tony?
I mean, you look at like LeBron James, like he has, and that sometimes he has a certain skill set, right? He has a skill, like he can play basketball or whatnot, but he has, in order to get paid what he's worth, unfortunately, he has to go play for somebody else that pays him. He can't go to a black league that could pay him what he's worth, and that's the problem. So as long as he realizes that, then that's what we need to start working towards. That's what we need to start developing. And once we do that, then the rest of the world is going to start to look at us as distinct, and they're going to start to say, hey, we need to treat these people with a certain amount of respect, just like anybody else.
What we have been doing as black people is building other people's empires.
Yeah, man. Yes. From the what they say in the boring, from the rooter to the tutor. You know what I'm saying? From the rooter to the tutor, man. Yeah.
We should use the template of Wakanda, even though it's not real. I get it, but Wakanda, right? And building a metropolis.
It could be real.
And I see, and not to get too far off tangent or off topic, there's recently been some news that came out in regards to the continent of Africa, where Africa is really building up like India. They're building up like, it's looking like a downtown Manhattan with paved roads, with buildings, glass buildings.
High-rise buildings, yeah.
And, they're doing that development, which is why China's investing in there. That's a whole nother story, a whole nother topic. But like you said, that's what we need to be doing as a culture in our motherland, Africa, building up our own empire instead of going to others, helping them build up theirs. And then wondering why, we're not getting a fair share, whatever the case would be. Because you have somebody else build it. Sorry, I'm not. Go ahead, Cal. I'm sorry, bro.
No. Tony, so what you gonna say, Tony? You gonna say something?
That's a perfect example. When we think of I did international business. That's just what I studied. But when we think of international business, we think of places like China, or we think of England or Europe and stuff like that. But this international business for us can be going to Haiti, can be going to Jamaica, can be going to Africa, can be going to these places of color, and starting with, hey, what do you guys have, and what can I take back home? And there's like, hey, there's a lot of things, especially in, like you were saying, what's happening right now in Africa is a lot of Caucasian people are going over there and saying, man, you guys have this, I can use this back in America, and they're starting to take advantage of these opportunities when we should be the ones that feel at home to do that, and we should be making money. We should be the ones who are making the money from doing that. If you look at a lot of Chinatown, or if you look at a lot of those, they're bringing a lot of Chinese products from China. If you look at Little Tokyo and LA and stuff like that, they're bringing Koreatown. They're bringing that culture, bringing those things back from their country, from their land. But we're waiting for somebody else to come to our land and take those things to the rest of the world. If we have, I mean, how many black people work in a factory now? How many black people, like, all you have to do is learn the different parts of that factory. What are you guys doing? What does everybody do? Can I build this product in Africa? Can I find some cheap labor or somebody that I can go to another country? I can hire people for half the price, and then I can just bring that product over here and I can sell it to the rest of the world cheaper than what other people can do. And now you see that now what you like, just like what you're saying is in China, because what's happening is they're recognizing that the labor is cheaper now. But a lot of Chinese firms are moving to Africa.
Man. And see, Tony, this is like, these global politics and economic principles that I think we need to encompass more of, especially you being overseas now, living overseas. But how does that translate to like the average person as far as like when we talk about stocks and products, like, like Apple, like, we buy a lot of Apple as Americans, just in general. We buy a lot of like Nike sneakers. They said during this COVID, I think what has went up? I think like household products have went up. Of course, the masks, of course, like medical, like cleaning products have went up. What else? Snacks. The snack industry has went up. And I'm looking up online, and I'm like, I think you mentioned to me before, We Buy Black. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are not a lot of snack brands, black snack brands. You would think it would be, but they're not. Like, just something like that.
And like for example, and that's a perfect example. I remember growing up, my family is my mom and dad's side from Chicago, and so I used to go back to Chicago like every other summer. And I know like they would get the Doritos and they put the cheese and Louisiana hot sauce on and everything. And then what ended up happening was that became so popular. It was just a thing. Like the local stores would be like, "Hey, you want some cheese? You want some cheese?" And
Yeah. Oh, man.
put the cheese in the hot sauce. But what did Doritos start to do? Doritos, they started to sell their spicy nacho cheese, right? They decided, oh, so many people are doing this. They decided to incorporate that into their business. You look at a lot of traditional black foods, and even though the other communities like poo-pooed them or whatnot, and now you're starting to see places like, I just saw that Popeye's fried chicken. Popeye's fried chicken is moving into China now, and they're opening. I forgot how many hundreds of stores, and they're going to start teaching the people how to eat fried chicken. Is basically what's happening.
Wow.
And we would think Chinese people are eating fried chicken. They love it. They really love it. KFC went over there, and now like Popeyes is going to move over there, and that's another example of something that could have easily been a black-owned company. We just don't think what we have is special, but the rest of the world looks at it and says it's amazing. And when you come over here, a lot of people can see that we are different. They're like, you listen to different music, or you read different books, or your clothes are different, your act is different. Everything they like that little bit of different, and that different is something that we can sell in anything. You don't have to make it completely different. You don't have to make a product that nobody's ever seen. Just change it a little bit.
That differentiate.
That little bit, that 1% is the biggest difference.
Yeah, relevant but different. Yeah, that differentiate. That one little bit of differentiate. Everybody got a shirt, but your shirt got like a different type of like button or something like that. Like just that little that slight bit of difference.
That's it.
Man. So let me, unless Kai, you got another question.
I'm still processing what Tony
Okay.
said.
Yeah. So Tony, man, in reference to when we talk about business and whatnot, we got to talk about investments a little bit, right? So I know like everybody, like here in the States, people been talking about like getting people introduced to the stock market or learning about the stock market. Certain companies have went up during this COVID quarantine. Some companies have went down and some have done both. They've gone up and down. It's reference of like the currency there. So the currency there is yen, right? Japanese yen. So how is the Japanese yen? Because I know you had mentioned this to me and I wasn't aware of it. How's the Japanese yen related to like American economy? Because a lot of people like, are we going to a Great Depression, Great Recession again? Like, like, and no one knows like 100% definitely. But do we have, I guess, things to look at or measures to look at to see whether it could be going that way or could not be?
I guess that's a difficult question.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure it is.
I think, I guess to break it down into a couple parts. The first question, and this is just from my perspective.
Yeah.
Right now, there's some people on the top who are kind of driving the boat, and they're the ones who are the visionaries, and they're kind of pushing us into the future. And they are that future, and they're kind of borrowing from the future to pull us into the future. And the reason, and they're using debt to create that future idea, to create that product that they're going to sell into the future. So what happens is everybody else doesn't have a vision or doesn't know what to do, so they go get a job and work with these people. And so once our confidence actually comes in their ability to execute that future dream. So now, with that said, right now, a lot of those people who are the visionaries believe that, for example, the internet is the future. And so now we're creating all kinds of products from Instagram to Twitter or all kinds of different ways to consume these things. And now we as people say, okay, this is the future. We're going to start creating content. We're going to start creating programs. We're going to start creating everything for your vision. And now we're putting this on. And their ability to now, once they create that Twitter, once they make money, they pay everybody else, right? Or once the Google gets paid, then the YouTube, and then they pay us, and they pay everybody else. So we're waiting for them to get paid, and right now we don't know. But at the same time, they're borrowing. They're borrowing from the future. They're taking out huge sums of debt because they hope that their vision is going to pay off, right? You look at Elon Musk; he's borrowing unbelievable sums of money for SpaceX to get humans into space. He doesn't know where to pay off, but he doesn't know once he gets there, how's he going to make money? He has no idea. He's moving, he's building as he's going along. But everybody's putting in money, they're putting in time because they believe in his dream. So now, like going into the stock market, right now, a lot of the people who were visionaries before are kind of worried, and they don't know if their vision is going to manifest. So they're holding it. They're kind of pushing the brakes, and they're not getting out any more money. And this is kind of slowing the economy to the point where you just have a handful of people who are really pushing ahead, and those people are creating more jobs because you need a job to do something. You're doing something,
Right?
Manifest. Right. And a lot of the people are not stepping up and saying, okay, well, we're going to keep moving into the future. So now when you look in the stock market, there's only a handful of companies that are moving up. Most of the companies are not really moving up. And those companies that are moving up are kind of bigger per se. So for most of the stocks, if you see in the stock market, a lot of people get angry because I think the unemployment rate is like 36 million or something like that. It's some unbelievable amount. It's basically like 10 or 15% of America is unemployed right now, which is like you're starting to go to close to the Great Depression. But what's happening is the reason people are like, why is the stock market moving? And the reason why the stock market is the biggest companies in the country, which are the biggest companies in the world. And these companies are kind of executing the dream of both the government and these people that are at the top. And they're still funding. So they're still funding those dreams with their debt. They're able to still get money. So I think to answer your question, the stock market, the big companies in the stock market are going to keep going up. and the stock market is actually rising, and it's going to keep rising because as long as they're able to keep getting money. And the U.S. government just came out. Steve Mnuchin just came out and said they're going to give money. We're going to give them money if we have to give them loans or whatever we have to do. We're going to give them money. And so they're basically assured that they can get an unlimited amount of money, so they're going to keep doing it. But it's just how's Main Street going to do? And I don't know if it's going to be as great.
To that point, and great question, Cal. Great question. To that point, the thing that comes to mind for me are two things. One, the U.S. dollar and the stimulus package that I believe that just passed.
Mm-hmm.
Gives an additional $1,200 and an extra $500 if you have a child. What is that going to do to the value of the U.S. dollar? Is it going to diminish its quality? Because you already know gold, they already go back to that, right? What kind of effect with them thinking that they have unlimited supply of money and they can just keep funneling? How is that going to affect the U.S. dollar across the world and its value?
The short answer to that is we don't know. And the reason why we don't know that is because the gold is, and I usually trade gold almost daily. But the problem with gold, everything has advantages and disadvantages. And with gold, when you put the U.S. dollar up against gold, then you can see I print $2, I have 1 ounce of gold, then I can quantify exactly how much depreciation it is. But now with the U.S. dollar not based off of anything but basically the American economy, it's very difficult to quantify how much inflation is actually in the system. So we don't know, like you said, we just print money, but we don't know how much it's going to really affect our economy because our economy it's not really based off of anything concrete. It's not a concrete thing. Now, will it eventually destroy the dollar? In order to destroy the dollar, people have to stop believing in the U.S. economy because that's the only thing backing. So the U.S. dollar is a piece of paper that's basically the stock of the country. And like you have a stock, which is paper, it represents the company. And as the company makes money, then that stock or that piece of paper has value. The more products they make, the more the stock has value. The same is also true with the dollar or the currency. As the currency makes more products, because the dollar or that currency is the stock of the country, then that country is going to become more valuable. So you can look at the Chinese yuan. The Chinese yuan or the renminbi is becoming more valuable because they're making more things. They're going to work. So now you're saying, well, yeah, but they're printing dollars in America. Okay, then the question is, once people start, or I guess the answer is, when people stop having faith in the U.S. dollar, then our whole dollar is going to crash. And that's just going to happen like that. It's just going to be snap. It's either I have faith or I don't have faith. And so we don't really know. It's not, if it was gold, I can see it rising. And that's why you can't see. You can look at gold and it's moving up a little bit, but it's not moving up in tandem with the amount that we're printing.
True, it's not.
People still have faith. I still believe. Okay, we're printing. Okay, I still believe. Do you believe America's the strongest economy in the world? Yeah. Okay, then.
Yeah.
They're going to keep their money in dollars, and as long as they keep their money in dollars, America can keep printing. But they can keep printing until they can, and then once they don't, everybody's just going to flood.
They can't keep. They can't keep printing until what was that again?
They can keep printing until they can. So I keep believing until I stop believing, right? Until that point when I'm like, oh, you guys, like, can you pay me back? Okay, I can keep paying you back. And then I just get to a point I'm like, you're not going to pay me. Like, I'm not going to get my money. That's the same thing. When people still believe in the U.S. economy right now. Even the size of the debt. I mean, I think it's like 22 trillion. It's like
yeah, it's crazy.
That amount is still growing, but people still believe in the U.S. economy. And as long as they keep doing that, they're going to keep their money. They're going to keep their earnings and their hard-earned cash. They're going to keep that work in dollars. So until they find another currency, where else are they going to put it?
Gotcha.
And that's the problem right now. The
Gotcha.
dollar's not going anywhere. They can keep printing, at least for the foreseeable future. But I don't know anybody. There's nobody in LA or New York that's going to start using Chinese yuan over the US dollar. And as long as nobody's going to take euros over the dollar. Nobody's going to take another currency. And when you start seeing that, then that's going to be what destroys the dollar. But right now, nobody else has anywhere to go. So the US government can keep printing.
Okay.
That's what they're doing.
Do you think, if God forbid that happens, or if it does, I pray that we're prepared. If that shift does take place, do you think that would be a sort of quick transition, or do you think we would have years of seeing that transition take place where the U.S. currency is being replaced by something else? Will that happen like overnight? I mean, I know you probably. I'm just saying from your perspective.
No, it'll take some time. It'll definitely take some time, but it'll start to happen slowly, and then it'll shoot up. And I just the best answer, the best example would be like Bitcoin. If you look at Bitcoin right now, Bitcoin's been around for I think like 10, 15 years, 20 years. It's not a new product. It's been around for like 15 years, but it hadn't really gained momentum. And then all of a sudden, like you started to see it go up like thousands of dollars a day. And then it shot up to 20,000. The same thing is going to happen. And once it shoots up, unfortunately, Bitcoin went back down.
That's what I was going to say. Bitcoin, I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
But the first part of Bitcoin, the ascension, that part is the same thing is going to happen with that other currency.
Sorry, Cal. I this guy Tony, man. I'm getting him up.
No, it's all good. All good. No. I was just going to, he answered it. Like I was going to ask, just interject with Bitcoin. Like, what about Bitcoin? But he's answering it right now.
Because that's my is Bitcoin is not US made, right? Is it possible that there would be a transition from the US dollar to Bitcoin, or no?
Never. 100%, never. And the reason why is because, again, Bitcoin is international. And the problem with it being international is the advantage is its disadvantage. And the advantage is that many people use it because it's not another country's currency, right? It's kind of, it's in the middle. Right. Neutral. But the problem is it's neutral. So right now, as people started to switch to Bitcoin, then the U.S. government started to attack Bitcoin. And they started to say it's a commodity and it has to be taxed. And you have to register if you use Bitcoin. You have to do all of these things. And then people started saying, if I have to register it just like it's a stock, then I should just treat it like a stock or something else. And Bitcoin couldn't really fight back because it's not a thing. So what will eventually happen is if people started to move to Bitcoin, then the Federal Reserve would start to attack Bitcoin and it would get to the point where they would say, the government could say, we're going to make it illegal for you to use Bitcoin in America. And then what are they going to do? Bitcoin can't fight back. So the problem with Bitcoin is that it doesn't have a country, it doesn't have a home that people that can fight for it.
Or that support behind it, like the US dollar, where the people support the US dollar. That's what gives the dollar its power. Bitcoin doesn't have that foundation.
It doesn't have that foundation.
Thank you, Tony. This guy is no joke, man.
Yeah, man. He's breaking it down all the way.
That's it. I ain't got no more. Your go, Kyle.
Yeah. Because I know we're coming up on the hour for sure. But yeah, so just one last question, Tony. Like in reference of, because I know me and Kaide, we're all about like solutions and things like that. So in speaking of these things, like with the U.S. currency, with the educational system and business practices, whether it be domestic or international, what if any, or one or a few solutions that people can kind of start with in reference of starting a business or living overseas, living abroad? Like, what's the first steps?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I would say to most people, of course, you're always American, so you can always go back home if you want to, but definitely look at other countries as opportunities. Like whether it's just getting a different experience, eventually you might say, hey, I really like it here and I want to move here. And just because you move overseas doesn't mean that you're not American. But at the same time, you can learn a lot of things or find new products products that you can take back to America and sell, or have new practices that you can take back, or you can start to get ideas that can eventually translate into a business or something that can move back. There's a lot of other things that you can do, and as we start to realize that, then there's a lot of opportunities in those. Also, going forward in the future, I do think times are going to get a lot more difficult, and the reason I say that is because I don't believe. Before, I believed that we were going to have a depression. I don't believe that it's going to be a Great Depression, because as long as people have confidence in the U.S. government, then the government can keep printing money that they're going to use to keep the economy afloat until the economy can catch its footing. That could take years. But at the same time, and just like what happened in Japan, is that can take 20 years of no growth, of the economy catching its footing. So while things won't get better, things won't get worse. They might even get better for the foreseeable future. And with that said, there is still a ton of opportunity under the surface. So you have to try to find those opportunities as they arise. For example, many people wanted to buy a house because they wanted to kind of get some equity and eventually build wealth. But wait a couple years and be patient, because probably those home values are going to start to come down. And then start to be strategic with what you're buying. And if there's a certain area that you want to get into, maybe an area, if you want to buy back your community or whatnot, that's those opportunities. If you're starting to look for example, a lot of businesses unfortunately fail. But once those businesses fail, then have your business in place, or your business idea in place to take advantage of those opportunities. Especially in areas of color, I think that those communities are going to suffer, of course, as everybody's going to suffer with the upcoming recession. But there was kind of a joke that they said, like, Black people think it was a recession, right? But it's like, if you're already down, when other people start to come down, they're the ones who are going to take the fall. And once they're taking a fall, now they're down on your level. You have to make sure that you're ready to compete and you're ready to jump on top. And I think that's happening right now, that a lot of people are getting their stimulus checks. That stimulus check is an opportunity. I almost certain, I'd say it's almost certain that there's going to be another stimulus check. I can almost guarantee it's going to be another. And when that other check comes, if it's for the same amount, then I mean, most people are getting at least $2,500 that they can do something with. If you're on unemployment is for 39 weeks now. That's been extended for federal. You're looking at if you have a business, then you're getting money from the government and the PPP and the CARES Act and things like that. So there's tons of money out here. You just have to use it strategically, and you have to put yourself in a place coming up in the future and try to be smart, because I think while the future of the economy is uncertain, the future for many young people is the brightest it's ever been. If you thought that you had to graduate, if you thought you had to graduate with X number of dollars in student loan debt and get a job at X big company and work for however many years before you retired or started your own business, well, now you can't get that job. And so now you have that opportunity to start your business right now. Because if you start your business in this next 3 to 5 years, it doesn't go anywhere. You're at the exact same person as the person who's looking for a job, because that person who's looking for a job is going to take him 3 to 5 years to find a job. But you had the experience of starting your business. So right now we have more opportunities and more options than we ever had before.
Very good.
Okay. All right.
Very good. I will take this back to my students, guaranteed.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, indeed. Wow, man. Oof. Family. Oof. All the way from across the waters, across the Pacific, in Japan, right? So brothers in Japan doing it. Okay, you see that. So we want to bring Tony on, for that reason alone. The brother has a lot of information, valid information to share, especially during these uneasy, unpredictable, very, very tough times that's going on for a lot of folks. And but even in those tough times, there's still opportunities to do things. And he mentioned a number of them in reference of just the perspective on going to school, perspective of starting your own business, perspective in a perspective of living abroad and working abroad as an American, whether you're African American, Italian American, Chinese American, Latina American, like whatever the case may be. Like he definitely touched on those things. So Kadi, do you have any other question for Brother Tony?
I got a lot of stuff that I have to register, Tony. You gave me a lot to digest, brother. I'm serious. I'll save my closing remarks. I have no more questions, but I'm gonna save my closing remarks for Tony, man, because I really appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Just met you. Appreciate you.
Indeed. Definitely. Thank you, Tony. Yeah. So family, we just want to conclude this session, this podcast. But before we go, I definitely want to give you my social media links. So you can reach me at DIX_KYLE or on Twitter, KEasy773, or on YouTube, right? Just Mr. Kyle Dixon on YouTube. And through there, you can reach me, email me, contact me, like and subscribe. All right.
Thank you, sir. Real quick, you can reach me on Instagram and Twitter at Balogun Legit. That's BALOGUN LOGIC. You can reach me on YouTube as well. Kaya Day Bentley. I have 2 other channels, Perspective TV, Candidate Advisor. And you can also check us out on Grand Rising Collective on YouTube as well. That's where you'll see this video along with a host of other videos that we have who are gracious to speak with those in our network to enlighten us and disseminate this information to the community at large. And before I hand it over to Tony, thank you so very much. I appreciate you, brother. The information that you shared was very enlightening. For being in Japan, brother, representing us out there in Japan, and the information that you shared, here's a tidbit. You shared a lot, but what I want to share is one final thing that you brought up, where it's good to know for young people who are going through college and graduating college and have that apprehension about whether they should go to college or not because of debt. The information that you shared, that right now graduating college is your best opportunity. It's never been better. Where you have 3 to 5 years to start your own business in conjunction to somebody who's graduating college with a degree and trying to look for work. Someone who's trying to start their own business will be at that same level, ready to capitalize on luck when that opportunity hits because they started their business now. That's a jewel, brother, among the many other jewels that you dropped. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I hand it over to you, man, to share your contact information and your social media handles.
Indeed.
Thank you so much. And I guess the last thing I would say is that if you are thinking about going overseas or even in anything, if you're thinking about starting your own business or whatnot, then the key thing, kind of as we were talking at the beginning, the key thing that you need is information. And the information is going to come through resources and connections. So if anybody is thinking about going overseas or they want to come to Japan, reach out to somebody you know. You can reach out to me, send me an email, anthonyr.hudson, anthonyr.hudson, like the river, HUDSON @gmail.com. Also, you can reach me on Twitter as well. It's the Sing Hopeful, THESING Hopeful, HOPEFUL. So, or if you get to Japan, of course we use Line, so you can use my line. Line is Anthony Hudson, Japan. Anthony Hudson, Japan is my line. So.
Okay. And that line is that like the phone line? Like is that what it is?
No, it's an app. It's kind of like the Asian Facebook, but
oh wow,
instant messaging. Yeah. So I don't really now. I never check my Facebook. So definitely, but no, reach out to somebody like there's probably somebody in that area. If you want to go to China, if you want to go to Japan, if you want to go somewhere, there's probably somebody there that's doing what you're doing. Just reach out. Hey, can you help me? Hey, I have a question. I'm new to the area or whatnot, and you're probably more than likely just going to get that help. So definitely feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Awesome. I will be staying in contact with you, Tony. We'll be reaching out to you. No doubt.
Nice. So yeah, family. This has been a great episode. I hope you've jotted some stuff down. A lot of dense things that has been said. A lot of great information has been given on this session. And I really hope that you really take it to heart and really go forward with it. Because again, we're all about solutions more than we're about the problems. So please take heed to that and run with it. All right. Because, this brother took out his time. It's in the morning time over there. It's the next day. So he took out his time, went to a cafe and, sat down with us. So definitely much appreciation, Tony. And, definitely hope to have you back again.
Gotcha.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
Yeah. Baby, yeah. You know, say, ready on this. You know, I have patience.